To discuss how to communicate your career skills, please help me welcome David Chapman.
Well, thank you, Benny. Thank you very much. And as you know, I'm a big supporter of this group, and it's always a pleasure to be able to present, in addition to all the time that us and others on the board are on behind the scenes. So thank you for inviting me. And Benny, I'll just ask a favor, if I can ask you to wear the hat of monitoring the chat. Just one less thing for me to do, because I'm going to.
Will be done, sir.
Okay, very good. And so Benny already let you know a good way to ask a question is just type the word question in chat. And if you're not familiar with chat, in the upper right corner of your screen, there's a little circle with a tab. It's called the cartoon call out. Click that and the chat box will open. And make sure you send the question to everyone, not just to me or not just to Benny. So that way both Benny and I can see it. And also I do have two, I'll call them intermissions. They're kind of logical breakpoints. So at the very least, if you're not incented to ask a question on a particular slide, we will take a couple breaks and have time at the end of this program as well. And so what this program is about, it's not a social media program, and so some people are afraid of social media, but it's really making sure that you get your message across anytime you're talking about your professional skills. And you really want to promote the value that you're going to bring to your next employer in any interview or situation, any situation where you're going to meet somebody. There we go. So, you know, what inspired me to write this, and I wrote this a little over a year ago, about a year ago, was hearing so many people introduce themselves at groups like this, you know, or answering this, so tell me about yourself question. And it seems 80% or more kind of fall in this category. I've got a gazillion years of professional experience with legacy tools such that I'm absolutely qualified in every skill your company is moving away from. Working for you, I will share my vast array of old and outdated knowledge to help you grow your organization. So this is what I hear when I hear so many of these introductions and elevator pitches. People talk about the past, what they've done and what they have, and not realize that it may not be relevant to the hiring manager. The hiring manager wants to hear about what you're going to bring going forward, not what you did in your career. So what we really need to do is begin to think about ourselves and our skills, what we're going to be bringing to our hiring managers. And one problem that we all have as job seekers is we tend to look backwards. We don't discuss or assert the skills that we're going to be bringing to our next employer. We like to show off what we did, our accomplishments. And some of our accomplishments are a few years old, so they may not really be relevant anymore. At least the ones with the skills may not be relevant any longer. And hiring managers don't like to do the effort to understand, gee, how am I going to use that old skill going forward? You gotta kind of tell it to them. And the reason why I know that, I was a hiring manager when I was in corporate, and I didn't like interviewing, and I didn't want to do any extra work in interviewing. And I just think that's something that hiring managers get stuck with. And so we, as people, have a hard time sometimes looking at ourselves objectively and looking at ourselves in the mirror. We have a hard time scrutinizing ourselves. And it's just kind of human nature. You know, we tend to, for most cases, be satisfied where we are or have an expectation of what we should be talking about. And so instead, you really need to promote to the hiring manager what they are looking for. Because if you don't promote to the hiring manager what the hiring manager is looking for, you can't really know how to stand out from the other candidates. And the other challenge you're going to have is if you don't promote those needed skills, the skills that the hiring company needs, you might undercut your actual value. You might get a less gratifying job if you land at all, and you may get less money in that opportunity because you're not selling yourself into the most current position that may be available with the real skills that they need right now. You're only looking back in the past. So we need to assess ourselves and look at the skills that we have and come up with ways to really communicate those very effectively. One thing I've have the opinion of, and I always what I tell people when I meet them in job searches, don't only follow your passion. And that kind of goes a little bit against, you know, the famous saying by Mark Twain, find a job you enjoy doing and you'll never have to work a day in your life. And I think that's true. I think if you do find a job that you really enjoy doing, it really won't feel like hard work. But I think some of us And maybe a lot of us really are striving to do that. We're only looking at the job that we think we'll enjoy and won't have to do a lot of work or won't feel like a lot of work. And my thought is, if you're looking to find a career that really matters to you, don't just think about the things that you love and come naturally to you. Don't just think about the job that you enjoy doing because it's just one of your passions. You can do things you enjoy that are not necessarily your passion. So find activities that professionally you've returned to a number of times before, something that you've done over and over again that you've gotten good at. And not that you hate it, but consider the things that you're really good at. Consider the activities that really challenge you, that really make you think and get active in your job and keep you busy, because of course when you're busy at work, time does go quickly and you wind up enjoying it. Find the things that really attract you, the challenges that attract you, the situations, maybe ones that even frustrate you for a while, but you relish in overcoming the challenge. So these are other types of positions that you need to look for. And I'm not saying go back to something you hated doing, but just don't only think about your most passionate things that you enjoy the most. You certainly never will be bored, because these are positions that you'll find very interesting, challenging, fun to work on. And I think you'll enjoy overcoming those challenges. And I think you'll always be fulfilled, and you may start learning new things. Because sometimes when you only follow your passion, the things you know well, you may not learn as much because it's what you love and you know it so well anyway. So don't only follow things that you're passionate about. Now, one place you can start doing that is look at your job description. And it could be the most current position that you're in now, or the most recent position you just came out of. Look at what that job description talks about, because those are things that you've recently accomplished, and there are probably some types of challenges in there, and you need to just reflect, use the job description to help remember what those things were. You'll certainly find it easy to identify those things we call hard skills. Those are the tools and the things that you do that are directly tied to your work experience. And so those are things that are going to be very important that you're going to look at. Recall your degrees, your certifications that you've earned. And the reason why is these are challenges, and these are studies that you've done to really accelerate your career, to make you more effective. And these begin to help you identify some of those soft skills as well. And then what you want to do is you want to start writing down your hard skills, your job-related skills, as what we call SARs. And this acronym, there's a lot of representation of this acronym. I like SAR. It's the one I remember. It basically means situation, action, result. And we're going to talk more about SARs in a moment. You may have heard of them as CARS, challenge, action, result. PARS with a P, problem, action, result, or STARS, situation, task, action, result. These are different names of basically the same thing. But what you want to be able to do is, instead of just listing, whether it's on your resume or your LinkedIn profile or even an in-person discussion, instead of listing the things that you're good at and the experiences you have, begin to tell them in a bit of a story, because it demonstrates just how proficient you are in a task. And you can really discuss how you've really become a master at using these skills. And so we're going to talk more about SARs. So in thinking of SARs, situation, action, result, it's really what you do to tell and express all the relevant information about using any skill in your job and its resulting accomplishment. So just don't tell people that you're good at Excel. Tell people how you've used Excel as an example. And I'm going to show you an example in just a moment. And so what the situation is, it really begins to discuss or introduce the story that you're about to tell. It sets the scene and lets people know what problem you may have been facing, what challenge was ahead of you, what caused you to begin to take on this project or assignment or this task. And then the next step is you begin to explain just what you did. So you had this situation in front of you. What were the steps, or the step that you took to address the situation? And then the final one is, what is the result? What was the outcome having taken this action against the situation? And so that's what a SAR is. So here's an example of one. This specific example may not apply to you or to everyone, but it's one that I came up with that I thought maybe a good example of what a SAR really is. And so think about it. You may have a bullet on your website. I am proficient in expediting the month-end close process. If you're a finance professional or accounting professional and you work in a company, the company closes the books, basically income statement and supporting documents at the end of the month. Maybe there's data that they have to accommodate and reports they have to build, and then they report that to senior management. And so if you're a finance professional, you may say, I am proficient in expediting the month-end close process, closing the end of the month. But think about that. There's no situation here. There's no action here. A little bit of a result, but not really a story of how you do this. And so this doesn't set you apart from anyone, because a lot of people don't use SARs. And if you're competing against someone in this industry or in this role, a hiring manager is just going to kind of check it off and go past it. But let's kind of craft this as a SAR. Here's the situation. Challenged with a long month-end close process. Now, I worked in corporate America, some in IT supporting finance. Some month-end processes took quite a bit of time. Challenged with a long month-end closing process. There's the situation. I reorganized my team's end-of-month work time into 2 shifts. That's the action that you took. I've reorganized my team's end-of-month work time. And it may just have been for those couple of days that are used in the end-of-month process, and that's fine. Doing so put more staff hours into this process, reducing the organization's end-of-month close time by 2 days. So maybe they had a 3 or 4 day end of month closing process, and this person has reduced it by 2 days. And so how did they reorganize the team's month end work time into 2 shifts? Maybe someone's, instead of starting 9 to 5, 1 or 2 people started at 7 o'clock in the morning, and that gave an extra 2 hours. And maybe 1 or 2 people started at 10 or 11 o'clock, adding another couple of hours, having more work time during the day. And also, by doing that, you can talk about, and they didn't need to work overtime because some people worked a little earlier, a little later. They still put in their 8-hour day. Now, when you write something like this, a hiring manager, excuse me, is going to be very interested in understanding what this process was like. And we'll see that you're really more of a deep thinker and not just someone who makes statements. So these stories, these SARs, are very powerful ways to talk about the things and accomplishments that you have completed in your career. And there is our first intermission. So, Benny, are there any questions? Or maybe this is a time, folks, to put in a question.
There are no questions. Oh, there is one question from Valerie. Are you adding the SARs to your resume?
I think you should. I think we should all put SARs in our resume. So if you have your current position or most recent position with 3 or 4 bullet points, they should be SAR format, not necessarily single line format. It doesn't have to fit all on one page. Your resume doesn't have to fit on one page, excuse me, or 2 pages. So if you have a SAR that is the equivalent of 2, 3, 4 sentences, it doesn't matter if you go on to another page. Really what you want to do is get your information out to the hiring manager very easily. Yep, so LinkedIn also, anywhere you're going to talk about it. Yeah, thank you.
No other questions, David.
Okay. So if anyone does have a question, just put that in the chat and we will address that accordingly. And we'll take another intermission break in just a moment. And of course, when intermission is over, the curtain opens. So let's talk about hard skills and in a moment soft skills and differentiate them just a little bit. Hard skills, they're really your technical knowledge. They're the training that you've received through your career. These are the tools that you've used to get your job done. That's really what hard skills are. An example, maybe you've worked in retail, so you may be very knowledgeable on how to use a point of sale system, which is kind of the electronic cash register kind of thing. So that would be a hard skill, that I know how to use a point of sale system. Now, how you use it, you can express as a SAR. We're not going to talk much more about SARs, but the hard skill would be using the point of sale system. If you're an accountant or finance professional or almost any profession, you may be proficient in using Microsoft Excel. And Microsoft Excel, your use of it, that's a hard skill. And you may have received training in Excel, besides just learning on your own as example. So, yep, this is a hard skill. Maybe you've studied a foreign language, or you were raised in a home where there was a bilingual family and you're able to speak that foreign language fluently. Then, of course, speaking that language is a hard skill and something that you want to promote. And I'm a big fan of, it doesn't matter what language you speak. Yeah, put that in your LinkedIn profile. Put that on your resume. You never know when a hiring manager may appreciate somebody that can speak a second or third language. It could come in useful in the job. So hard skills are kind of the tools that you used in your career. And then there are also soft skills, and soft skills really are very different. These are not your tools. These are not the technical skills. But what these are non-technical skills that show how you do your work. These are the things that are kind of add on to the work that you do. These are not usually taught in a classroom. And sometimes your hiring manager didn't even put it in your performance appraisal. In my mind, that's a short-sighted hiring manager. They should recognize those as well. It really can make you more successful in the workplace. So it's not just that you use Excel, but how you use Excel, why you use Excel, why did it make you more proficient? Okay. So some of the things, you may have proved yourself to be a team player. How have you done that? So that could be a soft skill. So you don't just state, I'm a team player, but you talk about the interactions that you have with your coworkers or the other departments in the organization. You talk about how you've resolved conflict, maybe with management or coworkers. And so you talk about the way you've accomplished that. You know, there's no software tool that teaches you how to do this. This is something that you learn on the job, and it's something in the way you effectively become a worker in your organization. How you adapt to unexpected challenges, right? The normal workday, you have those in front of you, you know what you have to do, but if something breaks or stops or whatever, how have you been able to work around that? And so that could also be a soft skill. So my opinion and my advice in this program is, when you communicate to hiring managers, when you promote in social media like LinkedIn and other places, you want to highlight and focus on your soft skills. So look beyond your hard skills. First of all, some of them can be quite outdated. So you may have come out of a company where you've worked for a number of years, used certain tools, had certain training, but the company wasn't very forward thinking. And now in the marketplace, they're using different tools and different training and different skills that are needed. So if you talk about what you've done with the gazillion years of experience in the past, those are old skills. They may not easily translate to today. So you don't only focus on your soft skills. And some examples, additional examples of soft skills might be teamwork. How you work within your team. All of us typically, when we work, do work with other people. It could be coworkers, it could be people in other departments, it could be clients, it could be vendors. You know, we all have to treat all of those people as teams. Talk about those. That's strong. Teamwork doesn't go out of style. What are your presentation and communication skills? Are you able to express the work that you're doing? Are you able to express and talk about the results of your project? Are you able to express the implementations? So yeah, these are all very important. There are a lot of people that are not comfortable standing up and talking in front of someone. They're a little shy. People overcome those, but this is very powerful. Time management. Are you very good at organizing and managing the time for yourself and for others that are working on projects with you? And so there are a lot of people that are not quite good at time management. Or they tend to they just let it go. They don't have good project plans, or they don't have end dates for the things that they're working on. And therefore the work goes a little bit long, and bosses, managers tend not to like people that linger on their work. They want to have people that meet their deadlines. So are you good at that? And maybe you have numerical skills and data analytical skills. Can you help analyze and review the data that you're looking at and express it in a way that's easy for other people to understand. Because if you can understand the value of the data in your organization, then you have a skill that maybe some other people don't have. Sometimes there's a lot of data that you have to crunch, and there's different hard skills and tools that you have to use to find and understand what they mean. But being able to approach that, that's the soft skill. Being able to talk about it, that's the soft skill. And that's something that sets you apart from some other people. And then what has been your professional development? What have you been learning along the way? What have you done to improve your skill set, hard and soft skills, throughout your career? Talk about how that's important. Talk about how you mentor others, could be as well, in terms of professional development. These are good examples of soft skills as well. Soft skills are often considered your transferable skills. So even if the hard skills are outdated, soft skills tend not to become outdated, and those are the ones you're going to take to your next job, to your next employer. So those are the ones you're going to talk about to your next hiring manager. So you're going to highlight very much your transferable skills. We'll talk a bit more about transferable skills. So these are skills that are transferred really from one job to another job. You did these where you came from, maybe you did these at a few other companies before, and now these are the ones that you're going to take to your next employer and help make them be efficient and effective in their work. Sometimes they're called portable skills. I've heard that name as well. And transferable skills really help position your future value from your prior experiences. In other words, these are the ones that are going to say, I've done this and this is what's going to happen going forward. This is how I'm going to help you because of my background. Remember, it's always about the hiring manager. Interviewing is really a very selfish process. It's all about them. It's all about them. And so you need to think about that. Now, I'm not saying that hiring managers by themselves are selfish, but we are there to be helpers. We want to help them. So the kinds of things that you may be applying for, any new job, your prior experiences, your transferable skills are valuable when you apply for any new job. Certainly, if you're looking to change industries, so if you're an accountant or a tech person and you've worked in one particular industry and you're hoping to go into another industry as the accountant or the tech person, what you're going to do is you can't talk about the skills that you've attained in that new industry, but you talk about the transferable skills, the portable skills, the ones that you can take from the other job, what you've learned over time, your ability to communicate. Are you able to manage stress and challenges very well in the workplace? When you're changing your role or when you're changing a position, you may be trying to become promoted by job search. You were a junior manager, you want to be a senior manager. Or maybe you're going to change roles altogether away from the IT and into finance. In my case, I did not do that, but I would have considered that because I was an IT manager for a finance department. So I really understood the needs of that department. I could have tried to do that using my transferable skills. And jobs where your hard skills have become outdated or are becoming outdated. It's not uncommon that when you've worked for a company for a number of years and you've used the tools that they've put in place, they may not have updated them. They may not have gotten the newest version or the latest tool from a different provider. And tools aren't just software. They could be any kind of tool. But if you're going into a new company, maybe they've got those new tools, and you need to sell yourself into a position that has that with your transferable skills. When I've done this presentation in the past, I've been told, can you give me examples of soft skills? Can you give me an example of hard skills? So this is a slide that just shows an example. These are mostly tech-oriented, so I realize not everybody is a technical person. You can probably build a similar list in your organization as well. And by the way, if you want this slide, all these slides are available for you to download. So, if you're not taking screenshots or if you can't take notes fast enough, these slides will be available to Diane to distribute, and it's also on my website, which I will show you a little later. So don't worry if you can't write down all these bullet points.
David, we do have a question.
Sure.
And this is from Diane. Your thoughts on adding Word, PowerPoint, Excel as a hard skill on your resume or LinkedIn? As a business person, I've always assumed everyone knows these, yet I've had people say to add them.
So,
Your thoughts about that? Go ahead.
yeah, I would put them, and I don't use my resume anymore, but it was on my resume. Even though I was a tech person and I knew how to use these tools, I would certainly put them down. And but also, if you have real experience with them, what I would do is I would make them one of my SAR bullet points, and I would give a SAR story of how I used Excel. Um, and why it made me more efficient, or tricks that I had done. And so a number of years ago, I had worked in actually Lotus 123, which is no longer really out there. Excel has long surpassed it. And one thing I needed to do was I needed to load data into Lotus, but Lotus didn't know how to load data. Now you can load any format into a spreadsheet. And so what I talked about is how I created a program, a C program, to read the data and load it into Lotus. So I would use a story something like that, how I've used Excel, maybe how you're using macros to analyze the data. And so those sorts of things. Yep. You're building presentations to support your communications and sales or anything like that, communicating to your project management team. Yeah, I would create SAR stories in addition.
So a couple of comments have been coming through. Sam mentioned that don't, when you were discussing, relevant skills, he stated, for example, don't stress your Y2K experience.
21 years ago.
Interesting is that Valerie just followed up and said, or Lotus Notes, which you just mentioned. And she also mentioned that never assumed that people don't know these skills. Finding more people who don't know all of these apps or are more proficient in some others. Two examples. Lotus Notes is obviously not a spreadsheet anymore, but it is. Notes is still used by some organizations as an email thing, and it is a more or less a very strong database. But the other skill that I don't see on resumes very often is Visio, because
okay. Yeah, I use that.
Yeah, and it's a very special. I see more technical people using it, especially engineers for designs. But it is a sought after skill because it is very difficult to use, or get used to, I should say.
Yeah, so certainly if there are tools that you're using that are specific to your career, and it could be Visio. So not a lot of people will use Visio, but if you're using any sort of kind of drafting design kind of thing, flow charts, office layouts, you can even use database designs in Visio as well, table relationships of tables and flows. Put those in as well.
Well, Valerie mentioned that she was a Lotus Notes administrator years ago, and every now and again I get a call about it. I don't remember, she doesn't remember enough to get back into that role, but it is still used. So definitely, even though it's an old Lotus Notes may not be the spreadsheet of choice, it's still used.
If you're using Lotus Notes, if you're coming out of a position where they've used Lotus Notes, and you recognize that it's probably not a very common tool any longer, your thought may be, don't talk about Lotus Notes. It's an old technology, and not necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. Well, I agree with it's an older technology, but instead, create those SAR stories. Rather than talking about Lotus Notes, talk about the challenges that you've had in maintaining an email system, or how you've designed databases, maybe the relationship of tables together in order to build an effective application. And you don't even have to talk about Lotus Notes in that case, or you just write it one time. But really talk about the soft skill portion of the work that you've done, and not focus on that you're a Lotus Notes administrator, an expert in Lotus Notes, because in a lot of industries and companies, they're not using it any longer, and you come across as maybe old, or someone who won't learn new skills, someone that it will be harder to train, whatever the bias is for only being stuck in old technology. And having the old technology is not your fault. That was the environment you came from. But don't talk about the tool, talk about the technique. Don't talk about the hard skill, talk about the soft skill. That's my opinion. And then I appreciated Sam don't mention Y2K. Yeah, we're plenty of years past that. And for those of you who don't remember Y2K, in the late 90s, there was a very big concern that computers were all going to crash between December 31st, 1999 and January 1st, 2000. And the reason why was data and storage and disk space was very expensive up until about the mid-90s. And when we designed systems, when we built the date, we only put 2 digits for the date. So today is 051521, right? Some of us may remember. Well, from 1996 to 97, that was easy, and 97 to 98, it was always 1. But when we switched from 1999 to 2000, we were going to go from 99 to 0. And so it was a Chicken Little fear. People thought the world was going to collapse. And so what wound up happening was a lot of IT people were brought in to work on resolving these across millions of computer systems. And people who had legacy skills, because there were these old programs that weren't touched for a while, like COBOL and Fortran and others, were now called in to use the old programming skills. And they fixed all the problems. And then COBOL was all the rage. Yep. And so when Y2K happened, and I remember staying up, well, I didn't have to stay up late, it was early in the day. Sydney, Australia had their welcoming of the new year, and everything worked. The lights went on in Sydney, nothing crashed, and country by country and time zone, things mostly worked. And then people poo-pooed it. See, Y2K was not a big problem. Really, Y2K was a terrible problem. And people just worked hard to fix it. Yeah, people got paid a lot of money. And that's probably the last time legacy skills, old skills really mattered, because companies did need to go back and bring in people who had some skills, a lot of people to have older skills to fix their programs and the other technologies. And there was actually a related Oracle database issue a couple of years later, about 2002 or 3, that was similar to Y2K, and everyone running Oracle programs had to do some tech changes as well, and I was involved with that. So Y2K is probably the last time old skills were really needed, and thanks, Sam, for reminding me and giving me a little bit of a chuckle.
David, if I could stop you for just a moment, be careful, because you recall just recently, it was exposed that the state of New Jersey Department of Labor still uses COBOL for its unemployment benefits systems. Yeah,
about a year ago, even Governor Murphy put out a call. We want COBOL programmers, because a lot of the older programs, and I could only assume that they were going to look to rewrite them, or put in something, that maybe it was related to Affordable Care Act or some immediate urge that they had. But there are still COBOL programmers out there for you technical people. You know about object-oriented programming. There's object-oriented implementation of COBOL. So, there are some organizations that have kept up with it, but I think it's just a little short-sighted. They should put a budget together to look to start replacing them. But yeah, New Jersey did. Yep. There's a lot of old programs in the Wall Street community, where they built these complex programs, and they're just afraid to touch them because they work. So there's a lot of old programming there as well. Yep. Okay, so I see lots of, COBOL in the state and the government. Yep, so see a few of the comments popping up. I didn't see any other questions before we move on? I'll take that as a no. Oh, time for questions. So are there, do you have questions at this point? Certainly feel free to pop a question into the chat, and we will address that. And I'm not sure if Benny dropped off. I don't hear Benny right now. So I'm monitoring chat as well. If you've got a question.
I'm on.
Oh, there you are. Okay, yeah. No worries.
Diane just said recommend a solid list of diverse skills. Seems like there are many interviews with the organization before an offer made, and each of those people are looking for different traits of how you're going to help them. I had 11 interviews before she landed the position she has at this time.
Wow.
Oh, and by the way, Sam also mentioned that COBOL is very big at the post office.
Oh, okay.
Didn't know that. Thank you, Sam.
Maybe that's why my packages are getting here so slow. Yeah. Change to a different stack. Okay, so why don't we just move along? And this is our last intermission, but we will have time at the end for questions and answers as well. This is the home stretch. And so the last time the curtain opens. So one thing you should start doing is looking at your performance reviews, because this helps you understand how your managers have viewed your performance in the past. So as you begin to assess yourself and talk about the things that you want to talk about, or maybe even find things that you need to improve, look at performance reviews from your managers. You'll get great feedback from looking at those. So it's a good indication of your hard skills and some of your soft skills, because sometimes the hiring manager will be putting in not just that you did something, but how you've completed an accomplishment. And of course, hopefully that gave you a nice raise at the end of the year. Also consider your strengths and your weaknesses. Okay, we've got somebody who is making a little noise. Excuse me 1 second. And that's what I thought. There we go. Sorry about that. So consider what's written there about your weaknesses as well as your strengths, because we're always happy to think about the things we're good at, but you're going to be asked a question, I'm sure. You're going to be asked a question in an interview, tell me about one of your weaknesses. And in case you can't think of one, because sometimes we don't like to think of ourselves that way, you may find one written in your performance review, and you can talk about, here was a weakness, and this is how I overcame the weakness. So, and weaknesses aren't bad, and the hiring managers don't really think of it that way. What they're interested in is, what are the steps you took to overcome them? And when you talk about it that way, it's kind of like a SAR. I was never very good at communicating to my team in the past, but I wound up producing a weekly status report, and that helped update my team on communication. So something like that may be what you could talk about. Okay, and then think about the improvements you've made over time, why you made those improvements, and as I said, list them as SARs. Those are great SAR stories, and those SAR stories are very easy and very relatable when we read them. Also, you can ask other people for feedback, and there's some people that are good for giving feedback and some people that are not as valuable to you for giving feedback. It's very impressive to have some sort of endorsement or referral from someone, that someone can say, here's what I think you did very well. So it's great to get that information. People who can give you good feedback, honest feedback, certainly about your professional performance, clients and staff from other departments. So clients are external and staff could be the clients that are internal. Your managers, reach out to your managers, maybe the one you used to work for, former coworkers as well. These are people that saw you professionally each day, and they can talk about your skills professionally. And then there are other people that are really good sources of encouragement, but poor sources of feedback. Your closest friends and your family members. These people can't give you good objective feedback. They're too close to you. I love you just the way you are. You are perfect. Don't change anything. So think about some of the people. Now, they have the most vested interest in your success. They want you to be successful. Certainly if it's people you live with, they want you to be successful. But sometimes they can't be much more objective than you can for yourself. So be cautious about using that as objective feedback. You can also consider taking some kind of online assessment test to get more information about yourself. Now, many employers are asking candidates to do them anyway as part of the interview process or the onboarding process. And so you may want to take one of these or two of these on your own to kind of prepare yourself for maybe what it's like, or maybe some of the questions you may get in an interview. There are some behavioral assessment tests. These are kind of used to predict how you might respond to certain office situations. And so here are a couple. The caliper profile is one, Myers-Briggs is another. Doesn't tell you what you should do professionally, but really talks about how you interact in the workplace. And then there are skills assessments that you can use also, and these are used to see how strong you are with certain of your hard skills. One used to be called Strength Finders. You may have heard that name. It's now called the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And you can find all of these online and see if you want to take any of them on your own. So take your own assessment and see how you're evaluated. In a couple of months, in 2 months here at the Career Support Group, we're also going to be talking about the DISC assessment. So you'll be seeing about that. That's a personality profile. And so you hang out for that as well. Also, start looking at job postings. Now that you know what your hard and soft skills are, and now that you have some stories for putting them into action, begin to see job postings and understand for yourself how you match up to some of those. And you want to look at the job postings, not even if it's for jobs that you're hiring, you want to be hired for, but to understand what they're looking for. You can look at jobs that are within your industry, within your role, but outside of your ability to commute to, just so you can learn more information. You want to find organizations that are in your industry and roles of interest, and you want to learn from them. This will also stimulate some thoughts of possibilities of the types of careers, the types of roles, the types of companies that you can apply to. They'll also give you some stimulation into how you should talk about yourself, how you should present your hard and soft skills, those transferable skills in your resume, LinkedIn profile, and certainly in an interview. And so it will give you a good indication of the ones that you're going to highlight in your resume and your public profiles. In other words, if companies are saying, here are skills I want, you have to say, I have those skills. These are the skills I have. Make it easy for hiring companies to be able to find you and connect with you when they start doing their recruiting. And you want to make it easy for them to see why they want to talk to you, because the skills you have match the skills that they're likely going to need. So you can check out other companies in your industry, even if you're not going to be hired by them or try and apply there. But if it's within your industry of interest, you'll get a lot of information from all those job postings. Also, then you next revisit your own public profiles. Revisit your resume, and those public profiles could be LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, any of the social media platforms where you are posting. And so you want to make sure that the job boards, your website, your social media, all those places have your new skills or the skills that you're projecting properly. Update them as you need. You can update and fine tune based on a career assessment, whether it's one of those tests, whether it's been one of the reviews that you've done by looking at other profiles, by other job descriptions. And you're going to highlight the skills most pertinent to the jobs you seek. Remove the old stuff. We talked a little bit about Lotus Notes. I don't mean you have to remove it all the way. You could still put on there that you have Lotus Notes. Just don't talk a lot about it if it's not a pertinent skill now. You want to talk about the pertinent skills. You want to present the pertinent skills that hiring managers want. Remember, hiring is a very selfish process. It's all about them. Me. It's what they want, and you have to satisfy them. And internal and external recruiters can more easily find you and contact you when they do their search, especially in LinkedIn, biggest tool for them. You want to make sure that your skills match the skills they're looking for. So as we wrap up, if you don't know what to look for, you just can't find what you want. You can't stand out from the other candidates. You can't differentiate yourself. The hiring manager won't consider you. Identify the skills you will bring to the employers. And I probably should underline employers, because it's all about them. And you want to recall and then list your hard skills and certainly your soft skills along with your professional experience. And find out what others think about you then and now, because that will reinforce the things that you could talk about, the very positive things, and you could also minimize, now that you understand, anything, the areas that you need to improve, or talk about them optimistically of how you've employed ways to improve yourself. Then update your resume and your LinkedIn profiles, your public profiles, to demonstrate and promote your value. So that's where we are.
Hey, so David, we have
So,
a couple of comments here.
yeah, sure.
Scott mentioned that you might be able to use past letters of recommendations as well in regards to comments online. Um, and Sam mentioned that it's a good idea to retain copies of your performance reviews so you can discuss them if appropriate during a job interview.
Yeah, I agree with both. I think recommendations, you could say you're the greatest programmer in the world. You can say you're the greatest accountant in the world. But if somebody else says it, that has a lot more value. And just
Yeah.
think about it. Even if you were going to hire an electrician or a plumber to do some repairs in your house, you don't pick the first one you see. You usually ask for a recommendation. And I agree with Sam about keeping your performance appraisals. I always did that. I always kept my performance appraisals each year, and because either I went back to them or I also used them to see, usually about the third quarter, when companies started thinking about the next year's performance appraisals, I wanted to see, what did my manager want me to improve? And then reflect on, did I do that? Because I'm going to make a case to get the best review that I can for the next year, and hopefully the best raise I'm able to for the next year. So I did reflect on them. I think that's very valuable.
Interesting is Valerie mentioned if you want a recommendation on LinkedIn, maybe you write up your own recommendation as a starter and ask people if they feel comfortable with it and not to tweak, then post it.
That's a great idea too, because some people will say, gee, Valerie, I think very highly of you. I'm not good at writing. So certainly what Valerie could do is write either an outline or bullet points, or even write the starting paragraph and say, here's an idea. Can you work with this and adjust it as you need? Sure, offer that to someone. I think they'll appreciate, especially if they're very busy, that you've taken the time to help them with this. Good idea.
Yeah, Valerie just mentioned, I can't take credit because she heard it in one of these meetings. So, but good idea for you to bring it up. Diane mentioned another thing, that it's a good idea to save all those thank yous and job well done emails from your colleagues that your colleagues send you on the job.
Yeah, I agree. Similar to Scott's comment a little bit earlier. And so here right now on this slide is a picture of my website. You see the workshops tag, but 2 tabs to the right, I have a testimonials tab. Clients that have written very positive things about me, I've put there. Now, I didn't put anything if a client was not happy, of course. Unfortunately for me, I have many more happy clients than unhappy. But yeah, I put those testimonials. I want to let people know that someone said something nice and who that person was. Director of an agency, a president of an organization, whatever it is. Very powerful. So someone else, it's not just what I say about me, it's what they're saying about me.
Yeah, exactly.
Use those.
Do we have any other questions or comments for David?
So one thing I promised was you can download this slide deck. So when we end the meeting and when I finish my first cup of coffee, I will email the slide deck to Diane, and she will make it available as she does through the organization. But if you are in a little bit of a hurry, this is my website, princetontechadvisors.com. And so just go to the website, click on the workshops tab. This is a workshop. And then the button at the bottom or the menu item at the bottom, recently offered programs. And if you click that, a new page will open. It'll be all my programs that I've given this year. And this one that we're doing right now is the one right at the top. And from there, you can click on the link and you can view and download a PDF version of this slide deck. All my slide decks are there that I presented actually ever since 2014. You're welcome to download any of them that you'd like. So just go to Princeton Tech Advisors.
You impressed Valerie because she can't believe that you did this presentation without coffee.
Yeah, but Valerie, grain of salt, Valerie. Valerie has that mega cup with liquid caffeine. So I'm impressed that you can have. I'm not seeing it right now. I'm impressed you can drink that much and not explode. But yeah, and it seems like you have a different cup each time I see you. So you have your collection of cups, and I've got my collection of Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah, variety is the spice of life, yes.
Yep. So if there are no other questions, and here's my contact information, you're more than welcome to contact me and follow up if there's anything that I can answer, I'm happy to, and my business card there as well. So you're very welcome to do so.